Hi guys, I'm Sandaru. I'm a mom of two from Sri Lanka, and well, I'm actually new to the whole YouTube thing, and this is my first video, or at least the first video where I am speaking like this. So pardon me if things are a little bit off. I don't know how the lighting is working. It's natural light. I don't know how the sounds are. I hope it's okay and that you can hear me properly. The reason why I decided to make a video like this to talk about my birth story is, well, actually I have two reasons. One being the fact that this time around, this being my second birth, I actually had a pleasant experience, whereas the first one I had a traumatic experience and I don't want to even talk about it. But this time around it was good, and I really wanted to remember it, right? I wanted to remember all details about it. I wanted to be able to recall it, so I wanted to make a keepsake out of it. And how I usually do that is that I'm into journaling. I write things down, so I wanted to sit down and write about it, but I never got down to it. So you know how it is. It's been 5 months now, and I was trying to recall the details, and I figured out I'm forgetting, and I couldn't believe it. I'm like, how can I forget? But I guess that's what it is, right? So then I was like, no, I want to really not forget. So I want to I thought I'll make a video out of it, whereas it'll not take as long as writing it. So I thought I'll talk about it, and I'll talk about it in a video. So the other reason why I decided to upload it is because when I was preparing for my childbirth with my first and with my second as well, I used to watch a lot of these videos online on YouTube. But I mean, there was plenty of videos on the subject, but I could not find anything that was about a birth that happened in Sri Lanka. So there was nothing, and especially about VBAC in Sri Lanka. So that was a little disheartening. I didn't know. So I thought, okay, so I'll share my experience on YouTube, so maybe someone can find this information and find it to be useful, I hope. So I guess that's why you're watching this. So I hope this video will be useful for you. I'll try to not make it too long. Let's see how it goes. Okay, so I'll get down to it. So as I mentioned, this is my second baby. I had my first, who's my son, that's my son, and that was in April 2017, and I had my second baby, my daughter, in June 2019. So before I get to the birth story of my baby girl, I'll have to touch upon the birth story of my boy, because it's related, because this was a VBAC. So I'll talk about how the first one ended up being a C-section. Okay, so when I became pregnant, I wasn't too sure how I wanted to give birth. As a lot of girls here in Sri Lanka, I had the fear of normal birth as well. I think that is just something that has been put into our head from child days. I guess with the movies we watch and things like that. I don't know how it gets into our head, but that's that fear, right? So I also had a little bit of fear like that. I myself am a baby born from C-section. Even my mother had not experienced normal labor, so I didn't have anyone to ask. I have no sisters or anybody who had, even anybody like cousins whom I could speak to. So I was scared about it, but then I started reading about it, like in whatever material that I could find. And I watched a lot of birth stories on YouTube and things like that, and I really started liking the idea of normal birth. One thing I realized is, even though in Sri Lanka the mothers are given the option of choosing between a normal birth or a C-section, in most of the countries in the world the mothers are not given this option. The norm is to go with the normal delivery, and a C-section is only proposed if there is a medical reason or if there's really a necessity to do that kind of a surgery on the mother, because in fact there are a lot of risks associated with C-section. And well, it's not necessarily the the best way, because the best way has to be the way that nature intended it, right? So this was my theory. I mean, nature has told, okay, this is the way that a baby has to be born, and then that has to be the best option, that has to be the best way. And I totally started believing that our bodies have the ability to do it, and we have to trust in our bodies that it can do it. And I then made up my mind, yes, I'm going for a normal delivery, and that's what I want to do. And my husband supported it. He liked the idea. He said, yeah, of course, we should try for that. And then I had a very easy pregnancy as well, so I had no complications. So then everything was fine. So that's what I was preparing for. I was excited to experience labor. I was, of course, a little bit scared, but I really prepared myself. Like, I did all the yoga, the walking, and everything I needed to do in order to prepare myself for a normal birth. And what I did not do is to even think about the possibility of a C-section, which is kind of my fault as well, I guess, because you need to, I guess, know that it is also a possibility. Like, if something goes wrong, you might have to do a C-section, but I completely disregarded that. I was like, no, normal birth, everything is going to be fine, because, you know, everything is going all right, and so on. So what happened was, I will not mention the name of the doctor and the name of the hospital for my first birth, because it wasn't great. So we were going to this doctor, and I told him I wanted to go for a normal delivery, and he said, yeah, you can, because everything's okay and everything's really fine. And so my due date, the given due date, was April 20th, okay? As every mother, I was expecting for the baby, I was hoping for the baby to come a little bit earlier than the due date. Well, if you're Sri Lankan, you know that April is the New Year's time, and that's a busy time, and it's a happy time, and I kind of wanted my baby to come before the whole New Year, this thing. And then, well, here we also believe that normal labor process tends to start if there's a poya around the corner. That's not only a belief in Sri Lanka, and I mean even Westerners believe that, and I think there's some truth to it. Like, if there's a poya that is close, I mean if there's a poya coming closer to your due date, it might put you into labor. So that's the belief. I don't know whether it's a myth or not, but some people believe in it. And then I was hoping it to be correct, because there was a poya on the 10th. So my parents and everybody were like, okay, you're going to go into labor on the 10th, because we all expected the baby to come a little bit earlier than the 20th, because I was so, like, I was huge, okay guys. So I'm not a person who's too big, but with my first pregnancy, I was huge, and by this time my belly was like so huge. And then by about 36 weeks or so, the belly dropped. Like, you know, people can say like, okay, your baby has dropped now, you know what it is. And then I started feeling lightning and everything, so I knew that the baby had turned. The doctor also confirmed that the baby had turned, and the baby seemed ready. And so we all expected for the baby to come a little bit earlier, and for 10th to be the date. But so when I went on the 6th, he did not do a check or anything. He said it's too early, and the baby had turned. That's what we found out from the scan. And then he told us that he in fact was going on leave on the 12th. That is, he was going on leave for the New Year's from the 12th to the 18th. And I was like, oh no. And so we asked him, so what's going to happen if I go into labor during this time? What's going to happen? And then, you know, you expect, as first-time parents, of course, we were a little bit concerned, we were a little bit scared, and we expected him to, you know, give us like some sort of like confidence, but he did not do that. He was like, probably the baby will not come until the 18th, because the due date is on the 20th, and even if he does, there will be other doctors to take care of it. And I asked, okay, who's the other doctor? Can you tell me a name? Like, that's how it should be, right? He should reference us to another doctor, but he did not do that. He was like, no, there will be other doctors, and since it's normal labor, it should be fine. I was like, Okay, so this was around the 6th, I think, and then I was still hoping for the baby to come on the 10th, so we were like, okay. And we left, and that I continued to walk, I continued to do all those things, and then came the 10th. The Poya came, the Poya went, there was no baby. And then on the 11th, I was working at this time, so I went to office, and I was hoping to get, some sign of labor, but I wasn't getting anything. I was, of course, tired and everything. So on the 11th, we knew that the doctor was going on leave on the 12th, so we were like, okay, what's going to happen? And then we decided to go and meet him that night to discuss. We got an extra appointment, and we had to wait to see him. I think we saw him around 11 p.m. that night, and when we saw him, he was like, he did not do any checks on me, right? And he didn't do a pelvic check, or he did not do anything. And then he said the same stuff. He was like, yeah, the baby probably will come only after the 18th. You have nothing to worry. Your things are fine. You can wait. And I was like, okay, what if he comes before that? I was like, yeah, there will be other doctors to manage it. You should be fine. We were not happy with that, and then I requested for a scan. I told him I wanted to at least know the weight of the baby, and at this hospital with this doctor, it wasn't the norm for him to scan at every checkup, but they would charge separately for the scans. So I requested, and then he took me to a scan. I think this was around, it was late night. And he did the scan, and I asked for the weight of the baby, and he said, well, probably he's around 3.5 to 4.5. You can't exactly say accurately at this point. So 3.5 kilos to 4.5 kilos. Now 4.5 kilos is heavy, right? And I was like, wow. I asked, well, if he's 4.5 kilos, am I going to have trouble with a normal delivery? And he was like, no, a baby of any weight can come normally. That is how it is, and if there is a problem, we will go for a C-section. So I was like, okay, doctor, so if the baby comes in your absence and some other doctor manages, and then baby gets stuck or something and we have to go for a C-section, will that be a problem? He's like, no, they'll be able to manage it. I was like, okay. Then I asked, okay, so if I wait for another week or so, if I wait for his due date, is he going to grow more? Will I still need a C-section? He's like, well, he will, but you can't really say, so you might, you may not, we don't know. So at this point I was kind of panicking, because okay, then what he said was, okay, you can decide, if you want, we can do a C-section right now, or you can decide to wait, so decide and let me know. So he gave us a few minutes, and we had to make this decision. So me and my husband had this talk, and what we decided was that at this point, with the information that was given to us, we could either decide to wait, and if the baby was in fact delayed, or he came around his due date, and if he was still heavy, like at around 4.5 kilos, if I still end up having to do a C-section, then it was a waste. It's probably a waste that I had to stay for another week, because at this point it was heavy. It was difficult for me as well. And so if the chances are that I have to go for a C-section ultimately anyways, I might as well do it at this point. And then also there was the risk of waiting, because the doctor is not there. What if I go into labor during his absence, and then there's a problem? Who's going to handle us? We did not know. And then that was around 11:30 in the night, and then it was decided that we'll do a C-section in the following morning at 7 a.m. So we rushed home, we took our bags, and we went to the hospital, and we got admitted around 1:30 a.m. I think. And there were no room in the maternity wards, so I was put actually into the pediatric ward, a room in the pediatric ward. And then I didn't really get any rest that night, because they did the monitoring of the baby, and then it was time for me to get ready for the operation. And then yes, I was taken on into the preparing area, and we noticed, you know what, there were about 10 other mothers to be taken into surgery that morning by that doctor before he went on leave. So yeah, I'm just saying. Looks like he's a fan of C-section. Yeah. So anyway, so that happened, and things were okay. So baby was fine, and that's what's most important, right? And then we were put back to our room. Everything was all right till, you know, that night. And that night we noticed that baby changed. He wasn't really latching on from that point, and he was breathing fast. They actually didn't take notice of this. It's actually my husband who kept on telling them there seems to be something wrong with the baby. And then they checked him, they ran different tests on him, they actually tortured him. And then they said, they finally did an x-ray, and they said that there was a germ that had gone into his lungs, and he was having some kind of like pneumonia, and they had to take him to NICU and put him under antibiotics, and that was really difficult for us. And you know, they did not say how it happened, and they said you can't really say, but I don't know. I felt the hospital was really dirty. My room was dirty. I'm just saying. I don't know, okay? And the other thing is, by the next day, I got fever as well. I shivered, and I got this like an infection, and I developed a fever, and I had to be put on antibiotics as well. So we were both under antibiotics. We don't know how that happened. And we ended up staying for a whole week, and that's the most difficult thing I ever had to do, and the most it's traumatic, okay? So when you just had a baby, you just want to hold your baby, you want to be with your baby, and then your baby is taken away, and then he's put into the NICU, and then he's all alone there, and then you're supposed to I was asked to pump milk, and then they fed him from a spoon, and this went on, and that for a week I was not well either, and they ran all sorts of tests on me, and they did so many blunders. I just don't want to go into details, and I hated the experience, okay? I'll just say that I hated the experience with the hospital. And well, my doctor went on leave, had his vacation, and he was back on the 18th, and I was still in hospital. And you know, he was like, oh, I feel bad for you guys. And yeah, I didn't realize that at that point it was anything to, I don't think that he could be blamed with any of that. I don't know whom to be blamed with any of that, but that just happened, okay? So for that reason, I really did not like my birth experience then, and I was so disheartened. Like, I wanted normal labor, and that did not happen. And then the C-section and everything that followed was also really, really, really bad. And this made me think that, oh my god, this C-section thing is like, why do people, there are people who choose to do a C-section over a normal birth, and I'm like, why on earth? Leaving aside the whole thing about the baby, my recovery was so difficult. It was difficult. It's just horrible, okay? So even after coming back home, I was having so much of pain, and I guess it's because I developed an infection and I developed fever. Maybe because of that as well. Now I'm thinking back, maybe all those things contributed, and emotionally I was drained. I was sad and upset, and maybe all of that contributed. But I started thinking that this is because I had a C-section, and all these difficulties are due to the fact that I had a C-section, and I hated it. And then, I hated the fact that I had to get a C-section, and we really, really regretted our decision that day to, for getting a C-section done. But then, so that happened, and even right now, I don't even want to go back to that hospital because that brings back those memories, and I hate it. Just a moment. Hi guys, it's a different day. I'm in a different outfit, and I just wanted to drop in to say that actually I'm going to make this video into two parts because it had I have rambled for so long and the video has become longer than I expected, so I decided I will post this in two different videos. So one will basically be concentrating on the birth of my first baby, and the second one is the VBAC story, that is the birth of my second baby. So if you're just watching this one, then do hop on to the second video as well. I hope you enjoy it as well. Okay, thank you.